Hey everybody, Zach again, NewTutorial.com, coming and making a video for you today. And this is a video I wanted to do actually a couple months ago, and just things got in the way, forgot about it, pushed it aside. But I want to come back to it because I saw it. It was this right here, this thing right here. So I had kind of set it aside and I had forgotten about it, and it came up. I was looking through some things on Shabbat and I saw this again, and I'm like, oh, I haven't done a video on that yet. That'd be great, a great thing to do a video on. So I found this in my supermarket aisle. Supermarket checkout. You know those magazines they put on the racks right there when you're checking out the supermarket? Yeah, this was right there with one of those. And so I saw this and it caught my eye, obviously, being a Torah observant person, this is going to catch your eye. And so I saw that and I read the title, How His Teachings Shaped the World. Right then, I was like, wait a minute. Moses didn't even want this job. It's his teachings? No. It was the Father who used him to direct the Israelites, the Hebrews, on the ways to live, the commandments that he wanted them to live by. And so I saw this and I'm like, oh, and I saw, Life, right? And it's Time magazine, right? Time Incorporated, right down there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but Time Incorporated. I knew this was going to be a good one. So I paid, believe it or not, with the $13, whatever it was, to pick it up, bought it, go home. And of course, it was exactly what I thought it would be. And I was like, I've got to do a video on this because, I just did a video the other day where I talked about the constant bombardment that you guys, every one of us, is encountering in these last days. It's just a constant chipping away at God. And really, a lot of these attacks that are either pro-American or anti-American, all these things, really what they come down to is an attack on God and the things that he loves and the things that he tells us are righteous. So, with that in mind, I'm looking at something like this, and it's just another one of those bombardments, one of those things that's chipping away at the American public. So I'm looking at this thing. Of course, obviously, the title catches my eye, and I open it up and I start reading these things. And first off, I read and I take a look at, who is the writer of this. And it was kind of hard to figure out because there were actually about 10 contributors that made this, whole book. I think it's, how many pages is this thing? I don't know. It's like 100 pages. 100 pages. It's like 99 pages or something like that. So 100 pages, it took about 10 contributors working at Time Incorporated, Life magazine, Time Life, to put this together. And the main writer, is what I narrowed it down to, was a guy named J.I. Baker. Let me just see it real quick, just so I know. J.I. Baker. Anyway, I looked him up, and of course, he's got his Facebook page, and there's all these guys do. He has his own Twitter feed, and it's full of obnoxious, very vulgar, very just that kind of material, stuff that you would not be putting on your Facebook page, hopefully. And so it's just a person who is very vulgar, who you can tell he hates God. There's no righteousness in his life at all whatsoever. And, it makes sense that people like that would put together a hit piece like this. But see, you look at it and it's not a hit piece. You think, oh, it's about Moses. Well, who's the kind of person who picks something like this up? Okay. So it's a Christian. I mean, this is geared and marketed towards Christians. They know Christians will buy it. They know people who like and enjoy spirituality, who like their church, just regular folks are going to pick that. People who are church goers are going to pick this up and they're going to take it home and read it. And really, off every single page, it's just a derogatory, it's a hit piece on every single page of the Bible. It's a hit piece on the Bible. The entire magazine, the entire publication is just geared at chipping away at your faith, causing doubt in your faith, causing doubt on the Bible. Let me give you some examples. Here's some of the things that are written in this. On page 4, it says, on page 4, there is, in fact, no proof that a man named Moses ever existed, or that the miracles he supposedly facilitated, the plagues, the parting of the Red Sea, took place. That's on page 4. So right there, it's saying there's no proof that this guy... So what? Going back to the garden, hath God said? ? Everything is to get you to doubt. This is how the enemy plays out, his entire strategy from beginning to end. Hath God said? There's no real proof of Moses. There's no real proof at all that he ever even existed, or of any proof of these miracles, supposed miracles, the parting of the Red Sea, and, the manna, and all the plagues, all this stuff never happened. There's no proof for any of this. That's on page 4. I mean, start off, there. Where else can you go, right? So it's all downhill from there. Here's page 11. The focus of the books of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, Moses was nothing if not a mass of contradictions. That's right. The Bible's full of contradictions. This is not something to be taken literally. This is not something to be taken, at all. Seriously. It's just a book, it's story, it's poetry, none of it, it's just a bunch of contradictions by a bunch of different writers, that's all this is. Yeah, this is what comes off every single page. Here's another good one I saw. Page 15. Moses was likely an imaginary being, such as were Perseus or Bacchus, etc., and so many other heroes of romance. Yeah, that's right. Moses was just a hero of romance, just something, a literary figure that someone came up with and, and had fun with in his writing, class. That's all it was. So, this is, again, and not to mention Bacchus, Barcus, son of Cush, Nimrod, that's who Barcus was. Barcus was a real person. He was Nimrod. After the Tower of Babel, all these other cultures had different languages, different names for all these different beings. I've talked about this in other videos. Anyway, long story, rabbit trail there. So I read this thing, and again, this was a big thing that I saw. It's just part of that chipping away. It's part of that nonstop bombardment that people who have faith, who truly believe the Bible is real, who truly believe there is a God and it is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one true God. It's a way to chip away at that faith. And you're under the gun right now, hot and heavy. We all are. And it's stuff like this that you find in your supermarket that's geared towards Christians. That is, its only sole purpose is to give you doubt in your mind and in your brain, and all of these things. I could do a whole video series on all of the misstatements and errors in this that they give. But someone who's not solid in their Bible, who has not studied these things out, and who is not geared with an apologetics mindset, a defense, being able to look up these things and see if they're actually true. Like, for instance, it says no mention of Moses is throughout history. When in reality, there's all kinds of other non-biblical mentions of Moses. Number one, the Quran, we all, he's in there. But there's also a lot of Egyptian texts that have come to light and have been suppressed by Egyptian authorities from getting out into the public because they don't want to have mention of a Moses. But there's all kinds of evidence out there that you can research and find. The mention of the miracles. They said, there's no real proof of miracles that Moses, what about the 1,000,000 graves that just, was it 2 years ago I did a video on? That Brigham Young University scientists were over in Egypt and they found what they speculate as being 1,000,000 graves, 1,000,000 people buried in hastily dug graves in Egypt, south of Cairo. I don't know. Where did 1,000,000 people come from that just needed to be put in the ground hastily? Could it be the death of the firstborn of Egypt? Maybe. But see, you can't use that as proof because that would lend credence to the authority of the Bible, and you can't do that. So there's lots of evidence out there. Tons. What about all the chariots they found at the bottom of the Gulf of Aqaba? There's been lots of studies on that, lots of papers written, video, pictures even, of all that. But that's not proof. We can't have that as proof. But there's no proof according to Time Life magazine. Again, the constant bombardment that we are all under. So, what's the purpose? You have this constant bombardment, this constant questioning of the authority of the Bible, the authenticity of the Bible. What does that do? And I think here's the goal. Here's the strategy. If you start asking questions, it causes doubt, just like it did with Eve. Hath God said? I don't know. So it's the same thing. It's causing doubt. It's causing a lack of fear of our God. We just had that whole deal, blow up with the Rapunzel gang recently. And I had a couple of their gang members email me and say something to the like of, my God would never hurt a homosexual, ever. That's not the God I serve. Well, it's kind of because you've made up a God in your own mind. And see, when you take away the fear of God because of doubt, then you're free to make up a God in your own mind however you want. You can make up a God that would, be okay with anything because it's not a real God. It's not the God of the Bible. But when you cause that doubt, which then leads to the lack of fear, You're free to make God your friend. You know, God's my friend. We're buddies. We're mates. And because of that, because we're buddies, I know he would never hurt a homosexual. He killed a guy for gathering wood on Shabbat. I mean, you think the lady who's celebrating Pride Week in the synagogue on Shabbat, you think she's safe? So, I mean, again, you have that doubt that causes a lack of fear in the one we serve, in the one we worship. And folks, that leads to making up a God in your own mind. And at that point, anything goes. You can do anything at that point. There are no rules to life. Guys, I'm telling you, you gotta stay strong because we're getting really close. We're getting really close. Do you remember? You ever seen those old World War II movies when they're coming over Germany or coming over their target? The bombers are coming over their target, and the enemy below is shooting up the flak, up at the bombing planes, and the flak gets really heavy, and you don't know if you're gonna make it. You ever seen that in those old World War II movies? Guys, we're getting close. We're getting really close to being over the target. We're really close to those last days, and that's why right now the flak is heavy because we're almost over the target. It's getting really scary being up in that plane right now because of the amount of flak. And I see some of you guys sharing stuff like this on Facebook that, I'm not going to go there. You got to stay strong, okay? Forget the flak. You're in the plane. Your plane's going to make it over the target. You got to make it over that target, and it's getting really hot and heavy right now, folks. Stay strong. That's all I can tell you. All right, go home, read your Bible. Thanks.